Nakakahiya magsalita pag ganun yung introduction. Never saw myself that way. Anyways, I'd like to thank, of course, Synergia Foundation led by Ma'am Nene and the Board of Trustees for inviting me again na makasama ho kayo sa Annual Education Summit. I remember nung mayor ako, I would also be sitting there. But ngayon, intindihan ni Ma'am Nene na sometimes when you're running a bigger department, I don't have the luxury of sitting, joining seminars or conferences. But I'd like to say na marami akong natutunan joining these education summits over the years. So, the Seizing the Day and the title given to me, or the portion given to me was I believe it was I Change. Normally, when I come to these seminars or these conferences, I come with a PowerPoint presentation. Pero si Ma'am Nene dropped me a note the other day saying, no need for a PowerPoint presentation. She wants me to storytell and speak about my experience when I was city mayor and now as secretary and how we change things. But the title didn't say we, it says I, ako. So, kung tatagalogin ko yun, paano ako nagbago? See, whenever we talk about leadership in the context of seizing the day, or whenever we talk about leadership styles, we always talk about, there's always that question. Is it the leader that defines the people, or is it the people that defines the leader? Magkaiba yun. Is your leadership style defined by yourself? Do you define it yourself? Or do the people around you define it for you? I'd like to think that it's the people defining your leadership style. And that's from my own experience. See, when I joined government service, I started as congressman for 6 years before I ran for mayor and led the city of Valenzuela for 9 years. Now, bago ako makatungtong ng City Hall, iba yung tingin ko at pananaw ko sa leadership. I used to think, like most politicians, I knew it all. 6 years ako sa Congress, so iniisip ko, alam ko na yan. And you have to remember, yung konteksto ng mga panahon na yon, ang papalitan ko, kapatid ko, si Senator Sherwin when he was mayor. So, for 6 years, nagtatrabaho siya as mayor, ako as congressman, nakikita ko naman yung ginagawa niya. So, sabi ko sa sarili ko, alam ko na yan. So, ang context ko ng leadership noon is, I knew it all. I knew every single answer and I knew every single thing that there has to be running City Hall. Doon ako nagkakamali. Sabi ko nga, marami palang namamatay sa maling akala and kamuntik ako mamatay nung first 6 months mula tumungtong ako ng City Hall. Now, when I joined City Hall, remember, yung umalis na mayor, kilala siya as an education mayor. In fact, when I joined City Hall, Valenzuela was noong time na yun may national achievement test. Sometimes kasi meron, sometimes wala. Noong time na yun, laging meron. And we were in the top rank. We were top 5 for everything. And then, when I came into City Hall, all of a sudden, we found ourselves outside the top 20 ranking. Ang layo namin. Wala naman akong ginagawa. So sabi ko sa sarili ko, there must be something wrong. And ano yon? Kasi you'd like to think na kakaalis lang niya, everything's already set. Pero bakit ganon yung nangyari? And that's when I realized that I didn't know every single thing about governance. Neither did I have the right answer for everything. For a good 6 months, kamot lang ako ng kamot ng ulo, trying to figure out how we can turn things around. Now, 9 years later, we are particularly proud of our education program. It's called Education 360. Education 360 worked around putting the child in the middle of the education process. Siya yung nasa gitna. Rather than yung mayor ang nasa gitna, or rather than yung guro ang nasa gitna, rather than yung magulang ang nasa gitna, nilagay namin yung bata sa gitna. And umikot yung mundo namin sa kanya. From a feeding program that is one of the largest in the country, to a literacy program where we enlisted college students to learn how to teach younger students, to coming up with facilities or campuses that were inspiring to learning, to coming up with sports programs that are values-based. So marami kaming ginawa. But the finish line, matagal bago kami nakarating doon, was a long and, for me, a long and transformative process. And it transformed not just the city, but it transformed me as the mayor or as a leader of a city of close to 1 million people. Now, in my quest to figure out what was wrong, I stumbled upon Ma'am Nene, pinakilala ni Sherwin. Sabi niya, alam mo, tanongin mo lang si Ma'am Nene, anong gagawin? So, tinanong ko si Ma'am Nene, Ma'am, ano bang gagawin natin? Sabi niya, hindi rin niya alam. Sabi niya, ang nakakaalam niyan, yung mga tao mismo. Why don't we talk to them, sabi niya. Why don't we listen to them and we talk to them? So, we did 6 months worth of talking, listening, and listening. And when I say talking, sila yung nagsasalita. We did town hall meetings or education consultations with parents. Doon namin natuklasan na yung mga magulang namin, iba pala yung konteksto pagdating sa their participation in the education of their children. We spoke to principals. At that time, yung mga principal na yun, ngayon, by now, they're all retired. Siguro pagka narinig nila to, sabihin ko, at that time, the resistance sa kanila was very heavy. But we still kept on listening. Lagi nila sinasabi sa akin noon, hindi kami sanay na nakikialam yung mayor sa edukasyon. Sanay kami na sinusubo lang namin yan sa mayor, tapos pupunta lang si mayor during graduation, mag-aabot ng diploma, tapos yun lang ang role niya. So you can imagine, we had to break that, but in order to do that, we had to keep on listening to the principals. We did a lot of listening with students. Kasi sila nga yung gusto naming primary beneficiary, pero their voices tend not to be heard. So it was a 6-month learning process for me. And in those 6 months, I'm so happy na dumaan kami doon because that's what defined my view of how we seize the day and how leaders define themselves. Kaya nga sabi ko kanina, in my opinion, it's the people that changes the leader and it's the people that defines the leadership style, not the other way around. Remember, sabi ko nga, I came into City Hall thinking I knew everything. I came to City Hall telling myself that I have the right answer to everything. But the most simple thing I didn't know how to solve, which was education. But 9 years later, we're very particularly proud of this education program kasi itong Education 360 namin is a Galing Pook awardee, cited by Synergia so many times. That's why Valenzuela would get its seal of good education governance. So, my proof of concept. And I would now say that that type of template is what we use, or I use, post City Hall, even here in the Department of Social Welfare and Development. So a couple of things that I learned along the way. Sabi ko nga, the very first thing is acceptance. Leaders like myself should accept that we don't know everything. We don't have a monopoly to the right answers. And I guess in your microcosm, sa inyong mga bakuran, whether you're a principal, a teacher, a local government executive, we have to start admitting we don't have the right answer to everything at walang masamang aminin natin yon. That is the first step. The realization na hindi mo kayang ibigay ang sagot sa lahat. But second, for people in authority, whether you're a principal, or you sit in the local school board or the local chief executive, you also have to start telling yourself to slow down and to listen. Listen. Kasi sabi ko nga, like in my case, I wasn't an educator. I don't have kids. I don't send kids. I don't have anybody who goes to public schools. So paano ko susugpuin yung problema ng public schools kung wala nga ako sa mundo na yon? So listening is the second part of it. Sabi ko nga to, like ko sinabi, I think I said this last year, when you're local chief executive or mayor, your voice tends to be the loudest in the room. You tend to drown out everybody. Even now, as secretary, lalo na. When you go into a room, you come with this air of confidence, and when you open your mouth, everybody just keeps quiet. So, the trick there I learned is to go in, introduce yourself, keep quiet, and listen. Kasi all of us in this room, we have loud voices in our spheres, and that the sad part is we can drown out other people's voices. The third is to make people believe that they're part of the solution. In Valenzuela kasi, when we ran Education 360, sabi ko nga, maraming ayaw gawin nung una. Kasi hindi sila sanay na nakikialam ang mayor sa pagpapatakbo ng local school board. Sanay na sanay sila na sila lang. But whenever you bring people to the fold, whenever you try to convince them to do something, and when you want them to rally towards the same direction, kailangan bahagi sila ng solusyon. In Valenzuela's case, one of the things na ginawa namin was we copied the bottom-up budgeting. Remember, nung unang panahon, Secretary Robredo had that bottom-up budgeting where local government units could propose projects to the national government. That's what we did with our local school board. I think it was my second term na binago namin. Na sabi namin, papatawag namin yung mga paaralan for them to be able to present their ideas sa isang pressing problem na meron sa kanilang paaralan, and we guarantee them that they will be funded through the local school board, yung mga ideas na yon. We did that constantly. And na-realize namin, when people are part of the solution, pagkasama sila doon sa solusyon, they tend to work harder towards the same direction. Kumbaga, if we're rowing the boat, we're now rowing all at the same direction or the same stroke rather than it's just me trying to row the boat that way. I'll give you an example. Again, we go back to literacy. We had schools then na despite everything that we would do because of poverty in the area, talagang some of the kids were really struggling. And the school would propose Saturday kariton schools. Sa kanila nanggaling yon. That was a localized solution. We had learning corners being developed. We had so many great ideas. And most of those ideas came from, actually all those ideas came from them. Kasi nga ang concept namin ng local school board then was to allocate a big chunk of it for projects that were determined by the schools themselves. And doon ko nakita na you can inspire people to work towards a solution if they are part of the solution itself. You don't shove it down their throats, but rather you ask them, paano ba natin aayusin to? Now, so again, first it's listening, admitting that you don't know the right answers to everything. It's listening, because the right answers come from the people themselves. And to rally them towards that inspiration, you have to make sure that they're part of the solution. But as government workers, lagi mo maririnig naman yung imposible ho yan, mahirap ho yan, hindi ho yan pwede, bawal po yan. Natutunan ko yan kahit na nung City Hall ako, and you can imagine me now sa DSWD. Bawat tanong ko, ang sagot sa akin lagi is mahirap, hindi pwede, imposible, hindi ho yan allowed. As leaders, I think, what I learned in seizing the day is once you harness the ideas already, it's your responsibility to make it happen. Or else manlalamig yung mga tao. I'll give you an example. We have this program in the department called the Walang Gutom program. It's where we try to end hunger by giving our beneficiaries, the food poor families, electronic benefit cards. It's a new program, and they go to their accredited kadiwa ng mga Pangulos stores to buy protein, fiber, and grow, glow, and go foods. Now, nung nagbago sa department, sabi ko, we want to do this program. Ang unang sagot nila sa akin, hindi ho yan pwedeng mangyari kasi wala ho tayong line item sa gaan yan. And para makagawa ng line item, napakahirap ho niyan at halos mission impossible yan. But we kept on doing it. We kept on going around, trying to ask for help, trying to figure out things. And lo and behold, after 6 months, we managed to create the department's first new line item, which is the Walang Gutom program, found a counterpart, overseas development assistance, to finance it. And that program is already running and about to scale up to its maximum 750,000 families by this year. So ang punto ko doon, you have to be relentless kasi sa gobyerno, lahat sasabihin sa'yo, or I guess even in your settings, mahirap, hindi pwede, imposible, bawal yan. Siyempre pag bawal, pag illegal, wag na natin gawin. Pero ang sinasabi ko, Roadblocks will always be there, pero you just have to be very, very relentless. Going back to my stint as mayor, when we were going to do the literacy program, the first encounter ko nun sa mga principals was, hindi ho dapat yan gawin kasi wala naman hong problema. Despite the fact na yung mga NAT scores namin was crashing already. At mahirap yon. Ang sagot sa akin ng sarili naming mga kawani sa local government, mahirap ho yan. Imposible ho yan. We wanted to do kasi what at that time was the first public school summer enrichment program. Ang mga sagot nila sa akin, ang concept namin nila Ma'am Nene noon, papabalakin yung mga bata sa mga public schools, and then they get to do reading in a fun manner for half a day, for 20 straight days. Ang sagot nila lagi sa akin noon, hindi ho babalik yung mga bata. Imposible ho yan. Pag hindi ho nyo papakainin yung mga bata, lalong hindi ho babalik yan. But we just kept at it. Admittedly, nung first year, mababa yung attendance. So we tried to retweak the program. We incentivize it. Meron kami nilabas na parang mga Jollibee cards wherein if they complete the stamps, parang sa Starbucks, they get a Jolly meal to celebrate with their families after 20 days. Nung nagko-complain yung mga guro sa akin na hindi kami dapat nagtatrabaho during the summers, when we started converting or offering more of those service credits, lahat naman sila naging excited. Nung sinasabi nila na nakakapagod yon, what we did was we got college students to work with them to become teaching assistants. Nung sinabi nila hindi babalik yung mga bata because walang pagkain, we found ways to feed them over summer. So again, bottom line, there will always be roadblocks. And there will always be people saying na mahirap, imposible, bawal, hindi pwede. At ang role natin bilang mga decision makers is to make things happen. Lalong-lalo na pag ang nakataya ay mga ideas ng mga tao. And then, moving forward, one thing I learned is the agents of change, hindi ikaw yun. It's your responsibility to find other people who will carry on the battle so that it becomes sustainable. In my case, after 2 years, we decided na we have to start devolving more of the education function to a whole bunch of people in City Hall, from city councilors to barangay officials. Kasi sabi nga namin, in order for the model to become sustainable, for Education 360 to live on, after I graduate as mayor, dapat may mga taong nagpapatuloy ho nun. And it's still running up to now because we have city councilors who owns bits and pieces of the program. Hindi yun lahat, pero bawat program, merong program manager, pati na rin yung parenting camp namin. I remember we started this parenting camp where we brought our parents back to school as well to become effective parents through incentives, of course, ng school. That's now being run by a couple of councilors kasi wala na ako sa City Hall. And these programs has to withstand or outlive my tenure as mayor of Valenzuela. So, in summary, I would say nga na it's quite peculiar for me to go on stage not to have a PowerPoint presentation or a structure. Pero okay rin pala na nagkukwento na lang ako. At sabi ko nga, the term seizing the day is a very, very, very big term. How do we make the most out of it, especially in these times where sobrang daming nangyayari sa paligid natin? But the bottom line there is if we tell ourselves that we are leaders who are defined by the community or the people rather than us defining ourselves. It's hard to evolve. Imagine nyo ako, I come from a position of power because I spent 6 years in Congress. So pagdating ko sa City Hall, iniisip ko lagi sa sarili ko, alam ko na lahat yan. Nobody should be teaching me what to do. Pero the steps that I gave you, I hope helps you. Will help you in your own ways when you go back to your communities, your schools, or your local school boards, or your local government units na, one, I really have to admit, we don't know the right answers to everything. Wala tayong monopolyo sa tamang sagot. And when we start admitting that, we tend to be more open to listening, to asking, to talking, rather than to us saying things with so much confidence kahit na mali. And us saying it in a very loud voice that it drowns out the entire room. And then when we want to make sure that the community is with us, we have to make sure that they are part of the solution rather than us giving them the solution. Let them figure out what the problem is and let them come up with their own solution, because the right answers really come from them. And then, your role as leader is to synthesize everything and try to make it happen. Bawal, hindi pwede, imposible, hindi mangyayari yan will always exist in this setting. But the important role is we keep on we don't stop. We have to be relentless until we make the impossible possible. In one of the years here, I think it was COVID years, until we learn how to defy gravity. That's what we have to do. And last, we have to make things sustainable. We have to make sure that long when we're gone, pag retire natin bilang principal, pag hindi na tayo member ng local school board or natapos tayo ating mga termino, because our public life is finite, we have to make sure that the programs outlive us by finding other champions of change or agents of change. And hindi tayo yon. Huwag natin isipin na tayo lang ang may alam nga at tayo lang ang magpatuloy nitong programa. So with that said, I want to thank all of you for lending me your time. I do hope na may maski papano may naitambag ho ako sa diskurso na to. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Secretary Rex.